The Buddha doesn't want us to go nuts. He wants us to be realistic and practical. Well, realistic worldview in Buddhism is accepting your connection with the world, accepting the cause and effect, realizing the infinite expanse of cause and effect, and realizing that if you do negative things, they have an infinite negative effect. If you do positive things, they have infinite positive effects. Therefore, you better do positive things, body, speech, and mind. Even your mind better be totally positive. That's why then Buddhists meditate a lot, because they don't want to leave any unpositive thing lurking around in their mind. They want to lojong it. They want to mind transform it. And here, he's inviting Yamantaka to do it. So, okay, so I'm sorry, I got lost. But so that's it, the challenge, that's right. So realism and looking at it. So now he has discovered that in verse 48. And he says, that's the way things are. I've seized the enemy. I've caught the thief who steals and deceives. Aha, there's no doubt that it's this self-grasping, this identity habit of mine, this self-absolutizing. That's what is, and it deceives me. It has been deceiving me from beginningless time by impersonating me. You are not your absolute self. I am not absolute Bob. I'm relative Bob. Very vulnerable, fragile, breakable relative Bob. I stupidly think I'm absolute Bob. I run around brandishing chainsaws in the dusk. And then I hack on relative Bob's leg. So it doesn't do me any good to live in a deluded manner like that. Do you know? But as long as I feel that I've had the habit, the identity absolutizing habit of thinking I'm absolute Bob, I have to verify that. I have to prove it to myself. And in fact, I think I'm going to find it because I subliminally, subconsciously think I am. So I have to really, that's where I need meditation then, to really put my critical intelligence, awareness, mindfulness against my habit and see, am I absolute Bob or not? And only when I really put all my absolute effort into finding my absolute Bob will I discover there is no absolute Bob. And that I'm empty of that absolute Bob, which doesn't mean I don't exist, which means that I'm relationally, totally, responsibly, vulnerably, indelibly, and inevitably here. Embedded in the causality of the world, and therefore must devote all relational possible things that I can have anything to do with to love, to the positive. No chance to spend the tiniest fraction of anything into negative, because it magnifies itself, like a match will burn down a forest, but luckily a drop of water will fill an ocean. So he discovers that, he says, that's the way it is. And now I know my only enemy in the world is this self-addiction habit. It's this fixed identity habit, this absolutized identity habit. That's my only enemy. That has made me act unharmoniously, unrelationally, nastily, destructively, greedily toward all beings, toward the universe from beginningless time. It made me into like a rhinoceros thinks they're an absolute charging machine, A crocodile is an absolute crunching machine, Different wasps are absolute stinging machines, In other words, I've been this kind of being. That with some sort of a being with a very hard shell is trying to make their boundary between self and other absolute. And somehow I've worked my way out of that evolutionarily to having a soft skin, to having only a few bones in there in the middle. No fangs, no injector, no poison thing. Of course, then I invent them, like a moron. I invent them, machinery to do it, but I don't born with them. And I'm born vulnerably. I have to be Googled around by some mom for years, trained by people and protected from everything for years, or I die. So really, human life, what is this crap about humans are aggressive? Humans are gentle and vulnerable and fragile and sensitive. And they're social and cooperative and they share their mind. I always like to say, we learned to talk to each other because we didn't eat each other upon our first meeting. You can't talk to anybody if you eat them when you meet them, or vice versa. So then we hung out, we couldn't eat each other, so we chatted. So we developed language. So we have a common mind. Through language. They don't have time to talk. They're munching crunching too much. So that's our true enemy there. That's the key insight of this work. That's the enemy. And then, of course, the amazing thing is, because this is wisdom and compassion cultivated non-dually, because it's within the non-dual worldview of there's no separate absolute that you get away to, that the absolute is the space within which the relative occurs. You could say it is the relative, therefore. And when you know that, then the relative is only bliss. Then that is nirvana, and it is an absolute difference, I mean, relatively absolute difference. And what makes the relative miserable is this self-identity grasping habit, and the self-cherishing, and the other neglecting, or the other abusing, or the other despising that comes with self-cherishing, the other ignoring. So it not only puts us into the challenge of discovering our freedom from an intrinsic absolute self, our absolute reality, it also puts us into the pressure of replacing that self-cherishing even ahead of time with other cherishing. So it sees the two sides of or it's a pair of demons that is our enemy. It is the identity absolute habit, like a cognitive type of thing, and it's the affective type of thing it's the self-loving, the absolute self-loving habit, those two together. That he's saying, that's my enemy, that's the thief, that's not really me, but pretends to be me. I'm gonna get after that one. I'm gonna give all this suffering. I'm gonna invite the Amantika, the killer of death, the killer of the killer. I'm gonna invite wisdom in the form of Yamantika. Transcendent wisdom, that's reality knowledge, that's science actually, that is realistic science, that is science reaching its conclusion in wisdom experience. Direct empirical wisdom experience. That's what Yamantika is. It kills the killer, because once you realize your total connection to other things, how can you kill any other thing? Because you are the other thing. You can't kill anything, therefore. Neither yourself nor anything else. So that's when death dies. So you invite the killer of death to come. And there's this ferocious passages where he calls in his own wisdom as Yamantika, Buddha as the killer of death, enlightenment as the killer of death. And he has him strike him, pierce the heart of this enemy, the self, dance and trample on the head of this betrayer, false conception, mortally strike at the heart of this butcher and enemy, my absolute ego. So it's really powerful. It's a little rough at Buddhism. It's very sharp. It's just turning on a dime, this teaching. From samsara to nirvana, from egotism to compassion, from delusion to wisdom.